All the history of this stuff. Kendall Coffey, he served as Al Gore's attorney during the 2000 recount. Harmeet Dillon serves on the board of the Republican National Lawyers Association, and both of them join us tonight. Thank you both very much for coming on. Kendall Coffey, first to you. There may be something that is missing in the translation here, but you have what appeared to be a pretty straightforward case of ineligible voting in Florida, where someone who was not a U.S. citizen voted in a federal election, and the lawyer, both for the Democratic candidate for governor and the Democratic candidate for senator, both of them objected to disqualifying that vote. On what grounds would they do that?
No grounds. It was a bad idea. It certainly wasn't embraced by the legal teams, much less by the candidates. When you get thousands of volunteers happening in a case, some of them are going to say things they never should have said. This was something that was immediately disowned, should never happen, but it was one non-vote in an election where there are 8 million votes that have been cast. So it's pretty darn remote and insignificant in the context of things. Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out. Do you think, Harmeet, that, I mean, what struck me about this is that I've been told many times on this show that that doesn't happen at all, and I don't know the extent to which it does. Does it happen a lot? Should we be worried about the integrity of our elections?
Oh, of course we should. I think this example shows it, and the Democrats are employing a scorched earth policy here. I mean, they reflexively think every vote should be counted, whether it is legally cast, legally received, legally matches up with the signature on record or the county on record or not. And that's not what our system of laws is, as Catherine Harris just mentioned. Just as an example, Tucker, in Arizona, in the election that was just concluded, there were 1,470 registrations by aliens in just one county there. So those are people who signed up and said, I want to vote in this election. That's one county. That absolutely happens all over the country, and it is a serious issue that Democrats don't want us looking into because most of those votes are going to be going that way.
So, Kendall Coffey, I think that every valid vote should be counted, and I think we should do all we can to make sure that every vote is counted. Obviously, that's democracy. But what is the answer to the question, where do these votes come from after the polls have closed? And we think all the votes have been counted, and then somebody shows up with a box and says, here are new votes. Shouldn't we find out why those votes weren't counted? What is that, I guess, is my question.
There should be an explanation. I think what the supervisors will say is they're running around all day in a very intense election trying to deal with things. A lot of ballots come in on the day of election by 7 p.m. There's a huge amount of late-breaking interest in this midterm and a lot of late-arriving ballots. Could it have been handled? Should it have been handled better in terms of informing the public about the status of votes? Absolutely. But the reality is that Broward got their votes in on time Saturday. We have a recount process that was created by Republican legislators, rules for recounting that are very well specifically drawn by Republican administrations, and a state supervisor of election and secretary of state that have been Republican appointees for the last 20 years. And yes, they've been paying attention to Brenda Snipes and every part of this election.
So I want to ask you about that, Harmeet. Brenda Snipes, a name I have not heard before, and I'm not here to attack Brenda Snipes, but I wonder when any question about Brenda Snipes' handling of this is dismissed as a racial attack, I wonder maybe if that's not, you know, a diversion designed to get us not to pay attention to what Brenda Snipes is doing. Do you think there's cause for concern in that specific case?
Tucker, I am here to attack Brenda Snipes. She absolutely deserves to be attacked, and her behavior here has been outrageous, cavalier. It required a court order to allow reporters and observers back in to watch the counting there. Contrary to what Kendall just said, they actually did try to count ballots after Saturday noon deadline, so they have attempted to do that. They have mixed in ballots. They have been observed filling in circles in her county of undercount ballots as well. So I think her behavior is outrageous. I'm wondering why, given this repeated pattern of conduct, the United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, Election Section has not opened up an investigation into this. I mean, this is a repeated pattern of behavior there. And, you know, just like you said, with regard to her gender and her race being pointed out, the same exact arguments are being used in Georgia on behalf of Stacey Abrams, like, oh, why would you attack her and question her? She's a woman of color. What does that have to do with it? It has zero to do with it. And the Democrats are really kind of undermining their own arguments with these silly appeals to labels.
Well, these ultimately seem like math questions, and I hope we can solve them in a rational way. Thank you both very much for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tucker.
We've got a Fox News alert for you tonight. Republican Martha McSally has conceded the Senate